Hello, everybody. Welcome to this afternoon's BCom information session here at Millpark Education. It's wonderful to have you all with us. My name is Julia Ross. I am the program head for BCom degrees here at Millpark, and I'd like my esteemed panel members to please introduce themselves. Can I hand over to you, Tembisa? Tell us who you are, what you studied, when you studied, and what you're doing now.
Awesome stuff. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining the session. So my name is Tembisa Funani, and I'm connecting from Port Elizabeth today. So it's lovely to be connecting with you all. And I'm really honored to be part of this panel. So I am coming with the student voice this afternoon in terms of just sharing my experience in terms of what my journey was like while studying my BCom in banking. So just a little bit in terms of background, I completed my BCom in banking last year. So graduation was earlier this year. And professionally, I run a small training company called Edufin Training, where essentially I provide training services to various clients. So by that, I facilitate, I assess, I moderate learning interventions, but within financial services industry. Prior to that, I worked in one of the banks for many, many years. And so in total, if I look at my, I suppose, experience within financial services, I've got over 20 years experience within financial services. The other hats that I wear the hat of a mom, I wear the hat of a wife. And yeah, that's me in a nutshell. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you, Tembisa. Lovely to find out more about you before we get stuck into our conversation. I'm going to ask Mr. Morapodi to please introduce himself and tell us all about what he does here at Millpark.
All right. Evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hendrik Moropodi, and I'm a lecturer in the School of Commerce, and I'm a registered accountant with SAICA. I'm also registered as a tax practitioner as well. And my field of expertise lies around about tax and accounting. And I'm just happy to be here. This is going to be a very informative session to you all in terms of what we offer here at Millpark under the School of Commerce. Thanks. Over to you, Julia.
Thank you so much, Hendrik. I always take my hat off to our finance and tax people, and we have another one joining us here today, which is Mr. Tatenda. Please introduce yourself. Tell us all about you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tatenda Mutambara, and I'm also one of the lecturers in the School of Commerce. In the School of Commerce, I take care of the finance modules, and it's good to be here. And I hope you are going to gain a lot of information. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you. So thank you so much for joining this conversation this evening. I am clearly surrounded by finance, banking, tax people while I'm sitting here with my background in law. So I consider myself in the company of esteemed colleagues this evening who know far more about numbers than I will. I was hoping to kickstart the conversation with you, Tembisa, to maybe tell us a little bit about what your journey was like studying with us, and if you studied while working full time, more or less, how was that for you?
Yeah. Thank you, Julia. Well, my journey on the BCom was not the first time that I was going on something with Millpark, because the other two qualifications I also hold through Millpark. So this has been a journey for many, many years. But in terms of just, I suppose, the motivation why I pursued the BCom in banking, especially as a working mom and a working wife, there's a credibility that comes with having that qualification. And being in the industry of banking, I think we all know, or even financial services as a whole, we realize just how much things change, and one needs to always keep themselves relevant. So for me, it was about wanting to build that credibility, wanting to make sure that I remain relevant within the world of financial services, the world of banking, because my BCom degree is in banking. So all the modules that I went through were, things that I could definitely take back into my training sessions in terms of assisting students navigate their world in terms of creating value for the banks they work in and for the clients that they interact with. So that was the one part, just wanting me to enhance my skills and enhance my credibility. But also within the field of learning, as you know, Julia, one can train or one can assess to a particular level depending on your own qualification. So now when I talk about levels, I'm talking about the NQF level. So having a higher diploma in banking was capping me at a particular level, and I needed to make sure that I can access more work, access more qualifications that I can train. And that is why I pursued this qualification. And to this point, actually, 2 of my clients, I've already started doing work at the next level for them because of the fact that I graduated. So the benefits of it, I suppose I'm seeing already, which is great. And I'm just hoping many more will come.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing your journey with us. I always like to say that education is the one thing you can buy that makes you richer. And
Yeah.
that's exactly kind of how you're describing the cause and effect of studying. So that's really awesome. Tatenda, you've recently written an article about the BCom degrees and the value that can bring to somebody and its kind of its place in the economy. Would you mind telling us a little bit more about the value that a BCom degree can hold?
Thank you again, Julia, for giving me the opportunity to interact with our prospective students. A BCom qualification comes with a lot of versatility in the sense that it presents lucrative career opportunities in different industries. Because with a BCom qualification, you can see that you can work in a financial institution, you can work in a mining company, you can even work in a construction company, you can even work in a hospital. For instance, when you look at the hospital, of course, you are going to have your doctors, you are going to have your nurses. But within a hospital, you have the finance department, you have the supply chain and the procurement department. And with the BCom qualification, you can actually work in these departments. And one thing that I like about our BCom qualification also is that our BCom qualification is offered online, which comes with a lot of flexibility in the sense that you can study while you are anywhere in the country, which is a great thing. And as I'm talking about the fact that our BCom is offered online, I'm sure some students may have questions about maybe some of the student support resources that we have. Maybe Ms. Julia, maybe you can just share a little bit about some of the support services that we offer students within Milpark Education. Thank you.
Thank you, Tatenda, definitely. And hopefully, Tembisa, you can also chime in and tell us which ones of these you used during your successful studying career with us. And I think, Tatenda, you touched on a lot of important factors that oftentimes we think of, I'm doing a BCom in banking or I'm doing a BCom in financial management. And you kind of think, oh, okay, well, I'm going to be a financial advisor or I'm going to be a banker. But there's actually a whole host of careers that require a BCom that you might not even be thinking about. And yet once you have that qualification, those doors just open, which is really a massive blessing. In terms of the support systems that we offer, I mean, with us being an online tertiary education provider, we know that the students can't necessarily just knock on your office door and say, hey, can I have a consultation, or go to the library and check out a book. If those support structures are still there within the virtual world. So you could book a online tutorial session with Tatenda, with Hendrik, and discuss the world of tax and the world of financial management and any questions that you might have with regards to your studies and your assessments as you progress. We also have some live sessions specifically before your major assessments. We have a peer-to-peer platform, so you can engage with students who are taking the same modules with you, form those study groups, even if it means meeting on MSM Teams or sharing your study notes via live documents. There's lots of creative ways to kind of build that support system, even within an online platform. And the unsung heroes of Milpark Education are definitely our program managers, because they're the ones who are there with the student, taking them step by step through their entire journey, making sure that all their questions are answered. So there's absolutely loads of support mechanisms. And I think the most important message is that they're there, but it's up to the student to utilize them. It's up to the student to reach out to the lecturer and say, hey, listen, I'm struggling, or can you help me further my understanding? I don't know, Tembisa, did you make use of our tutor forums and our consultations with our academic owners or lecturers during your studies?
I can definitely identify and resonate with all that you said now in terms of just the support that comes through. Because one thing about studying part-time or studying via distance learning while you're working, you can't do it alone. And I think Milpark definitely shows up in terms of the support. So you spoke about the program managers. Like, I would not have completed if it wasn't for my program manager. Like, I honestly felt like she had a sort of like a personal interest in me making sure that I complete. Because as you know, when life is lifing and you're thinking, no, man, let me just give up. I don't need this. But she made sure that I push through. She would sort of encourage me to show me how far I've got, what's left in terms of what I still need to complete. In fact, I met her in Cape Town for the first time, and that was quite emotional for me as well. The lecturers, like everybody, like literally everybody. And then when it comes to the student support, I think just the peer-to-peer support, I've been able to even have friends that I found through studying that now we chat, via WhatsApp or whatever the case might be. One of our groups for one of our modules, the innovation module, we literally still all there, but most of us have graduated. And from time to time, we'll check in with each other. So just that emotional, I suppose, human element, as much as the studying is virtual, but the humanness definitely comes through in the interactions with the lecturers, the way that they respond so quickly when you post a question on the tutor forum, and how it is that they really want to make sure that you get what it is that you asked a question about. There's no way that a person can't make it. If you are struggling, you reach out, you communicate, like you said, because again, they're not psychic, so they won't know what we're going through. So it's up to us to make sure that we do communicate. And when we do communicate, the support is there. I think, yeah, that's what I can say from that side.
That's wonderful to hear. That feedback warms my heart. And I think my colleagues here will agree with me when we say we crave that student interaction, because we've studied so
Always.
much to be academics that we're so passionate about our fields of expertise that it's like, please book a session with us so that we can talk about law and tax and finance and accounting, because that's what we ultimately love, is educating people specifically about our fields of passion. So that's really awesome to hear. And you also spoke about the humanness, and it's one of our, I don't know if it would be our statements or our slogan, is that we're digitally fluent but human first. And I think that's become increasingly important as we're going into new technologies, new ways of teaching. I mean, we've just had this boom of AI, which I'm sure everybody is sick of hearing about. But we're now trying to, rather than avoid AI, rather than shying away from it, we want to embrace it. We want our students to become digitally fluent and still have those human interactions and those human skills. I know, Hendrik, you recently set an awesome question in one of your exams or assignments. And obviously, he's not going to give us the memo in case, any of our students are here, even though the exams have been written. But I wondered if you would share with us kind of how you are integrating using AI into our assessments.
Yeah, so now, as we all know, and pretty much a lot of us are aware, that AI basically came with a strong wave. So now, nonetheless, we as the educational institution of higher learning, we had to make sure that we actually incorporate AI in our learning so that we ensure that we deliver perfect result in terms of ensuring that we enhance learning when it comes to students. So what I did was on one of the specific questions that I had asked on the assignment, I made sure that I go to check GPT, and then therefore that's when I placed the question in relation to tax. And what I wanted students to actually learn or grasp from that experience was that I needed them to sort of identify the loopholes that AI has, because we know for a fact that AI lacks human touch in it. So therefore, I wanted students to actually critically think and analyze and mention the loopholes that they can identify from the response that they had received from ChatGPT.
Thank you. It was such a cool question, because a lot of the times we want to encourage students to use AI, but in a responsible manner. In the same way that, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but since I found out about ChatGPT, I don't think I've written a formal email myself. It's like, please make this email sound beautiful, sound perfect, sound professional. But we need to make sure that we are using ChatGPT and we're using all these AI functions in a very responsible way. And that was such an awesome illustration of go and use it. But now tell me why your knowledge actually surpasses what ChatGPT generated for you.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a really cool assignment, and it's kind of it gives us an example of how within our BComs in School of Commerce we are actively trying to get students to use these new technologies, become masters at them, so that they can go into the workplace or continue within their workplace, but with these added skills. Now, asking students to use ChatGPT is really cool. What sometimes our students don't think is really cool is when they're studying a banking degree, or they're studying supply chain and logistics, and we say to them, okay, cool, you need to do a law module, or you need to do a finance module, you need to do an accounting module, and they kind of look at us like, come on, we're not going to become attorneys, we're not going to become finance professionals. So I don't know, Tembisa, how did you find those modules that weren't necessarily within the exact direction you were going in banking? And did you find that they then added something to your overall understanding of the field?
Yeah. I think when you talk about modules, that one is like questioning that, why are we doing this? The one for me that comes up is the innovation one. But it starts to make sense, when you look at the bigger picture and how everything fits together. But definitely when we look at just the modules that are part of the program, they help because they're so real within the world of work in terms of what we do. Some of the modules that I can think of, I mean, I did say that I work within training in terms of financial services. So some of the modules that I would be going through in my own studies in terms of accounting, taxation, those things I was able to take back into the classroom. One that pops out even more is the one in terms of economics and international economics, especially in the world that we're in now, and you're able to relate to things that students are seeing, and the examples that we were finding in the study guide, which are real examples, it's not fake examples, we could, I could use back into my training class. So I could see tangibly how it is that I could take some of the stuff that I was studying and then be able to apply it in terms of my own training interventions that I was delivering. But also on the personal side, I mean, as a small business owner that is trying to grow this thing that I'd like to see succeed one day, I do need to understand taxation. I do need to understand accounting. As much as I might have a bookkeeper or someone that's doing that for me, ultimately I'm accountable in terms of what happens. So if I don't understand what's going on, I won't be able to probably ask certain questions or understand when things are going wrong. So I could literally see how it also applies within my own business, looking at risk management, looking at marketing. So literally the entire qualification, I could see how it is that I can take back into not only, with the clients that I work with, but also in terms of how I can apply it within my own business.
That's awesome to hear, because that's exactly the objective with which we design these courses and these degrees, is to say, well, what are the skills that the person is going to need once they've accomplished this degree? And whether you're an entrepreneur and you need to have oversight of, oh, this is a legal risk, or oh, this is a tax risk, or if you're going to be sitting at the exco board with the head of marketing and the head of HR, and you kind of need to be able to follow that conversation and add value to it. So I'm glad that you found the value in that. And I wanted to, yeah,
sorry, Julia,
go
just
ahead.
to add to that, just the credibility that a person has, and I suppose the confidence you're able to develop as a result of now having this knowledge base, the technical knowledge that comes with the qualification that can make these conversations richer. You know, when you talk about being able to contribute to particular conversations, within my line of work, I come across all sorts of audiences. And I mean, some of them, it's leaders and senior roles that have huge years of experience. So it makes sense for me to be able to level up to their level of conversations. And I mean, most of these qualifications, one can actually link it back to that. So you just reminded me of that as you were saying that.
That's wonderful to hear. And I wanted to ask Mr. Tatenda about, you teach primarily financial management and a lot of the associated modules. And I know that it's been something that you've been actively working on, is to show students and show potential students, well, why is financial management really important in order to build those skills in real life and in your businesses? Would you mind telling us a little bit more about that?
Yes, definitely. When it comes to financial management, I can safely say that the primary objective of every profit-making organization is to maximize shareholders' wealth. And when you look at the skills that are required to maximize shareholders' wealth, you would see that financial management skills are on top of the list. Because when you speak about financial management skills, we are talking about skills that are related to managing your capital structure. We are talking about skills that are related to managing your working capital, which is the lifeblood of the organization. So if an organization is lacking as far as financial management skills are concerned, the consequences can be dire. They can even result in bankruptcy. So financial management skills are very critical in every organization. And as a graduate or as a student, if you are equipping yourself with financial management skills, you are equipping yourself with skills that are required in almost every organization. And one thing that I like, particularly when it comes to our BCom in financial management, is that the outcomes of the qualification itself are perfectly aligned with the skills that are required in the world of work. This means that by the time when you graduate, you are not only going to live with a certificate, but you are also going to live with the necessary skills that are required in the world of work so that you can make business decisions that are going to contribute towards maximizing shareholders' wealth. Thank you very much.
That makes sense. And I'm not sure, Hendrik, if you kind of feel the same way about tax, to say, well, everybody needs to know this, because if you're going to be successful in business, you need to understand the at least the basics of the tax implications of your decisions.
Yes, of course. That's pretty much I mean, agreement with what you're saying, Julia, because we need to know that we need to understand that taxation plays a very crucial role, not only in shaping the economy, but also in developing students' critical thinking and fostering compliance in business as well. In business practices, it's one of essentials that comes about understanding how taxation and the world of tax operates. So just to mention one other thing, which is very crucial, we need to understand that when it comes to taxation, understanding it will enhance your critical thinking. And then we need to ensure that in order to enhance this critical thinking ability or skill, students will be required to actually analyze complex systems, thereby understanding how the tax laws operate. And by doing so, they need to ensure that they interpret it correctly, and in ensuring that they understand the tax laws concerning taxation. And this complexity will actually push students to break down and also evaluate information very critically and carefully. So, and then one other thing that will ensure that enhances or encourages critical thinking when it comes to taxation would then lead students to actually evaluate ethical implications concerning taxation, whereby we will say students will then be exposed to scenarios which involves tax avoidance or even tax evasion. Remember, there's a difference between the two. The other one, it's illegal, and the other one, it's not legal at all. So such situations or scenarios will then prompt them to actually assess the legality, the fairness, and as well as ethical business conduct concerning the world of tax and taxation at large. And then one other thing that I would really love to share and put to the table to you all is that in enhancing the critical thinking, you will also be equipped with application of abstract concepts. So by that means you will then learn to connect the economic theory, the accounting principles, and the legal frameworks to real world financial decisions. And then I can typically give you an example. An example that I can think of from the top of my head would then be if ever I present you with a case study about, let's say, a multinational corporation which is shifting profit to lower their tax jurisdictions, can actually help students in ensuring that they assess the legal loopholes that might be connected to that corporation, whereby it shifts profit in lowering their tax jurisdictions. And then also, it will also enhance the ethical consideration of students, and it will further broaden the economic impact that is associated with that case study or scenario that I've just presented to you now.
Thank you. And I think that one thing that I'm loving about this conversation is that I can so clearly hear how passionate, Tatenda, you are about financial management, and how passionate, Hendrik, you are about tax. And that's something that I think is then conveyed to our students as they study with us, is that we all are really passionate about what we know, and we're keeping up, and we keeping the material relevant. And at the end of the day, I like to think of my students who say, why are we studying business law in this BCom degree? I want to go off and be an accountant. And I always say to them, at the end of the day, it's going to save you money in your future if you can say, oh, this contract is valid or not, without having to hire an attorney. It's going to save you money in the future if you're able to say, well, actually, I do think we're tax compliant. I've followed all these rules. And then you only need to go to a tax practitioner or an attorney when you really start to feel like, oh, this is maybe getting a little bit complicated. So having that full understanding of basically the economy in general and the various role players is incredibly important. Now,
and sorry, Julia, I'm just thinking at how these modules can also help you identify possibly another passion of yours that you didn't know about. Because as you possibly going through, business law, then you suddenly find out that you're actually interested in law. And maybe that is a stream that as a student, then you can then follow. Because for me, a passion that came up during this qualification was I actually like financial planning. So that is something that I'm also wanting to pursue a little bit more as well. So it helps to expose to so much more that one can apply now, but also you can see what else can I channel my energy into in terms of work-wise.
That's an excellent point. And I think it links so well with what Rebecca is asking in the chat. And I think, Nkosi, it links to your question as well, is that the way in which we've designed our qualifications is so that one can feed into another. You might do a bridging course with us or a higher certificate with us and say, I absolutely love this field of interest, and then go into that field of interest afterwards. And the same with while you're studying your BCom, you do your first year, you initially set out to study a BCom in logistics and supply chain, but you took accounting with Hendrik and Tatenda, and you were like, whoa, this is mind-blowing. I absolutely love this. And then it's set up in such a way that you could then move over and switch your major and try something else instead as you develop those passions. So to answer some of your questions in the chat, there are those modules that are going to be important whether you're studying a higher certificate, a bridging course, or a BCom. So if I think of like Introduction to Business Studies. Everybody needs to know that. So when you migrate from one qualification to another, we do absolutely give internal credits and exemptions for modules that you've passed that are then relevant into the next qualification, because it's designed to be a journey. And ultimately, we'd like to see all of our students flourish and get their masters and their doctorates and just go on and shape the world, either through education or through practice and being in your field of expertise. So I hope that answers some of the questions in the chat that I've seen popping up here on the side. And thank you, Timbisa, for that insight. Timbisa, I wanted to ask you a really important question. So I worked full-time and studied in the evenings, but I wasn't a mom and I wasn't a wife, and I just needed to come home and, you know, cook myself some tuna noodles and wash my dishes and log on to the laptop. So how did you manage having a full-time life, a full-time job, and still accomplish all these epic things that you've done in succeeding with a BCom degree?
With great difficulty. That is the honest answer. Sometimes I don't know how I did it, but it happened. Because like you said, you know, full life itself is full, but as soon as you add, you know, studies and the deliverables and the due dates that come with that, it does add a lot of pressure. And I mean, when you work for yourself, you don't have a knock-off time. You're literally working 24 hours. So it does take a lot of juggling. It does take a lot of trying to keep some balls in the air. Some do fall, and it's okay when they do fall, but just, you know, trying to see how you can pick that ball up again and continue where you need to be. But it required a lot of planning. So luckily I do like planning. So I like to know what I'm doing ahead of time. So as soon as the timetable would come out in terms of the modules that I was doing, I would then make sure that I plan what's due when, put in reminders. So technology becomes very handy for that. So I'd have like a reminder a month before that there's an assignment due, 2 weeks before, a week before, whatever the case might be. Obviously, some of those reminders would get snoozed, as we do snooze some things, but at least it keeps you knowing that there's this thing that you still need to do. A lot of sacrificing, so a lot of time spent on weekends, a lot of early mornings. It does require you to sort of look into your life to see what do you need to sort of shift around where, understand who you are as a person in terms of, you know, your body clock. When are you most alert? Are you the person that will stay up late at night to do your assignment, or do you wake up early in the morning? So some of those things you just need to establish early on so that then you create that routine for yourself. And then obviously I'm not leaving things for last minute, because it, you know, you cannot take a whole body of work and think you can understand it overnight or over 2 days, especially when preparing for exams and things like that. So it does require planning, organization, and just pacing yourself in terms of time. But obviously family support was key. So my husband, rock star, Superman to no end, he was definitely the one that should have been on that stage accepting this degree, because his support, I would not have done it without him. So having those conversations, I think, early on with your family to say, this is what I'm getting into and this is what I'll require. And, you know, so that they know, because when you start not being able to show up for certain things, it can maybe cause a little bit of conflict. So having that conversation up front, then at least you all create a plan together and everybody knows that mommy is doing this or my wife is doing this, and how do we then all, you know, do this, because ultimately it's for the good of everybody, it's for the good of the family. So yeah, I think those are the things that I can think of in terms of how I managed. And then obviously, even on the Millpark side, where you are finding that there's a struggle, again, reaching out for support, communicating where things might not be happening according to how you wanted. Because as much as you can plan, when life is lifing, life will life. So now you can't meet a particular thing, but communicate. And there's ways around these things. There's I suppose there's plans and methods that can be put in place to make sure that you do what you're supposed to do at the end of the day.
That is such excellent advice. to sit everybody down and say, okay, cool, this is what we're going to do. This is what I need from you. This is what you need from me. You know, how do we reach that compromise? And whenever we attend graduations, we always give a special shout out to the family and the friends that we're there supporting, because we know that in order for one of the family members to flourish and to study, it requires ultimately the sacrifices of everybody. So I think your advice there is really, really sound. I wanted to chat about you said you made a plan, and you know, sometimes you snoozed your plan, but you didn't snooze your dream. Did you study your degree through the distance learning DL mode or through the distance learning online DLO mode?
No, it was DL.
DL.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly the difference between the two, because you have that personality of, I'm going to plan, I'm going to make sure I meet these goals, you know, set those reminders for yourself. And that's ultimately what you need when you're studying DL, because there's so much freedom and so much flexibility that it really comes down to the student side to say, okay, this is what I'm going to accomplish this week. And if I don't, then it means next week, you know, now I need to accomplish 2 topics and keep track of all of that. And then for some of our prospective students who maybe can't, you know, organize like that or need a little bit more structure, we also offer our degrees on DLO. So our distance learning online, essentially what that means is that you're going to study, you're still going to get your BCom degree in the same right that anybody else did, but it's just a more structured approach. So we'll say, this is what you need to do in week 1. Here's the learning material. Okay, here's the assessment that's relevant to this particular learning material. Now we can move on to week 2. So I think it comes back to Tembisa, what you were saying about knowing yourself, figuring things out early on. Are you somebody who could succeed with loads of flexibility, or are you somebody who requires a little bit more of a structured approach? And that's essentially what you could, you know, narrow that difference down to.
Yeah. Can you maybe, sorry, Julia, to cut you short there. Can you maybe tell our prospective students more about our easy, user-friendly learning management system that we operate with here at Milpark?
For sure. Thank you, Hendrik. I think that helps a lot, is to say, okay, cool, well, you've got all this material, but how exactly do you go about interacting with it? Do you go about finding it? So your online learning platform is basically your classroom. And when you go on there, you can say, okay, cool, this is where I click to go meet my lecturer. And this is what I click to go and have a live class. This is where I find my support material. This is where I find all the material I need for week 1. I don't know, Tembisa, how did you find learning online? Was it easy to find everything that you needed? Did you sometimes need to ask somebody and say, hey, can you help me find this? Or how did you experience the online learning platform?
It is very user friendly. So, you know, going into your course and getting all the, I suppose, information that you need, the tabs that are there, they're straightforward. You know what you need where. So I didn't really struggle with the LMS. And I think also what I liked about it is that it gives you access, especially when you start doing modules like the business research methodology or, you know, innovation, and you've got all these databases that you're able to access in order for you to do your research. And I mean, some of those databases would be things that you'd need to pay for if you were accessing them outside of the Milpark learner system. So that was quite nice to have. And just literally everything that you need to do on the one system, that was handy. So it's not like you need to go into different places to go submit an assignment, or you go somewhere else to write an exam, but literally it's your one-stop shop for everything that you're doing for your qualification.
I love that. It's your one-stop shop. Everything you need to know about financial management 1A on the page. You do your exam there, you do everything there. And I think that's a really wonderful way of packaging it.
And Tembisa, I just wanted to ask one question. Would you consider further studies with Milpark Education?
I'm already considering. So I want to do my PG Div soon. Finances, or just not financing this year, but I'm hopefully, because obviously I'm self-funding all my studies. So I'm hopefully going to pursue that next year. And then definitely after that, MBA. And I mean, Mill Park is the only one that I'm even thinking about in terms of considering. So yeah, the answer is a big yes. Capital letters, bold, underline, all of it.
That's awesome to hear. I hope we get to sit on the stage when you have your MBA graduation and we get to see you walk past there knowing like where you started and how far you got. And we've had a few students that start from bridging course, higher certificates, and then they graduate with their DBAs. We had a student graduate with their doctorate in the beginning of this year who started with us as a higher certificate student. So it's always
Nice.
an incredibly encouraging journey to witness.
Yeah.
I wanted to just answer one question that I saw in the chat here before we wrap up with some final words of advice. So Nkosi was asking us about whether or not there's a competitive advantage to study a BCom with a specialization as opposed to studying a BCom general. And I don't know if any of my panel members have any thoughts on that as to what you would advise a student to go with a specialization or to go with a BCom general.
Okay, I can answer that. So when it comes to that question, it depends with your career goals, because when you look at the BCom General, it's a broad qualification in the sense that it's covering multiple disciplines in commerce. The general BCom, in the sense that it will have finance, it will have accounting, it will have taxation modules, it will have marketing modules, it will have business management modules. But when it comes to a BCom qualification that is specializing in a particular field, that qualification is focusing in one area. Let's say, for instance, you are looking at a BCom that is focusing in taxation. Most of the modules that you are going to go through in that qualification, they'll be related to taxation. So if you know your career goals, knowing that, okay, maybe in the future, I want to be a tax consultant, I want to work in the tax industry, it would be best for you to go for a BCom that is specializing in that particular field. But on the other hand, with a general BCom, it's a generic qualification that is broad, that is covering multiple disciplines that are in commerce. Okay.
That's an awesome answer, because I think it depends on your goals and it depends on the flexibility and the time with which you want to get to those goals. So like I was saying earlier, the one really nice thing about the way in which the BComs are designed is that there is that ability to move. So if you started with your BCom in, I don't want to pick on anyone, so I'll pick my personal BCom, compliance and risk management, and you get through BCom law and you say to yourself, "Yo, I don't know that this is for me. I much preferred my finance module with Tatenda." Then you can shift, because most of your credits are going to transfer, because it's a Millpark to Millpark degree. It's on the same level. So I think you have to go where your passion is, but you also have to know yourself well enough to say, well, maybe I'm undecided, or maybe I actually started on this journey, but I'm kind of leaning more towards that other journey, and then follow where your passion leads you. Because I think if there's one thing you can take from this interaction, is that all of us are very, very passionate about what we do. And that's what makes a person fulfilled at the end of the day. So you really need to ensure that your studies line up with your ultimate goals and your ultimate passions. Now, as we wrap up this conversation, I'm sorry, Mr. Hendrik, do you want to add on, please?
I just wanted to add on to what you and Tatenda alluded to. So my suggestion would then be to our prospective students. My suggestion would be, if ever you're trying to test waters, I would suggest you start off with the BCom General, and then from there you will know as to, okay, I'm comfortable with accounting, I'm comfortable with taxation. That's where you will start to pivot in a different direction. So my starting point would then be, just take the BCom General first, assess your strengths, your weaknesses pertaining to the modules that would be covered within the BCom General. And then from there, you will pivot. Okay.
That's
Cool.
excellent advice. And that's the way our first year is designed. It's kind of gives you a taste of everything that you could potentially branch into. But at the same time, even if you chose not to branch into those things, like Tembisa was saying earlier, those modules do still then add value to your career, to your perspective, to those conversations that you're going to have at the exco board or on the golf course or at the coffee shop or wherever it is that you're doing business, because it's ultimately going to make you more well-rounded. So I think that's really great advice for if you're a little bit undecided. Now, as we wrap up, I just wanted to ask Tembisa, is there any advice that you would give to a student who maybe they haven't studied since matric quite a while ago, maybe they have a very busy schedule, or maybe it's just the dauntingness of, do I actually go for it and study a BCom? What advice would you give them in making that decision?
Yeah. I think what I can say is, for the fact that they already joined this call or they're watching this recording, that means they've taken that first step. Take that next step and register. Even if you're thinking to yourself, no, but, can I, will I? Most of those questions are just things that we put in our heads that don't really materialize. So have obviously a plan in terms of what it is that you're wanting to do. But whatever barrier that you've got in your mind mentally, especially where it's, will I be able to do it? Can I study? I haven't studied in so long. You will be able to do it. The brain is plastic. It grows, it adapts, it will get to where it needs to get to. So, some of those things are just, again, things that we put in our heads that are not really the truth. So we can build a new truth for ourselves by actually starting and doing it. I think, is it the Chinese proverb? I might be mistaken, that goes, the best time to plant a tree was yesterday. It goes for this as well. So while you're thinking about it, do it, because you can't say next year. Next year, you've already lost a whole year. Start small, maybe one module or two modules at a time, until you can see, how you are sort of creating that routine for yourself and getting used to this new life of studying while working. But I would definitely say go ahead and do it. You will never regret it. I think a qualification is something that one can never regret. The learning that comes out of it, from obviously the technical sense, but obviously the stuff that you also grow into in terms of just the whole experience, you do not come out the same person. So yeah, I would say do it. And I mean, if I could do it, you could do it too. So I think that's just a lot.
Thank you so much. Truer words have never been spoken. The best time to do something was yesterday, and also celebrating the small wins. You joined, you listened, you clearly curious about that next step. So I think we need to follow that curiosity and definitely better ourselves in any way possible. Thank you so much, Tembisa, Hendrik, Tatenda, for joining us tonight, answering our students' questions. And for our prospective students, please, all of the questions that are in the chat, we will get answers to you. So if we hadn't had time to specifically mention your questions during this live session, somebody will definitely get back to you, answer your questions, make sure that you have all of the information you need to make an informed decision of why joining Mill Park School of Commerce is just the ultimate choice. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Tembisa, Hendrik, Tatenda, and have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you. And thank you, Julia, for facilitating the conversation. It was not nerve-wracking at all. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Do you think?